Sometimes, there are stories that were never meant to be told. But if you're hearing this, it means you're like me, unable to look away from the darkness. This is a story about a little girl, a mother, and the kind of secrets that should have stayed buried forever. Before we begin, if you're listening from your own shadows, don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. Tell me, what goes through your mind when that final door begins to creak open? Past midnight, we received a report of an elderly woman and a little girl playing on a swing set in a small park on the west side of town. The strange part, they had been playing all night, without stopping. When we arrived at the scene, our flashlights illuminated a sight that sent chills through us. The girl was still on the swing, head bowed, body completely still. And the old woman, frail, hunched over, continued to place the girl back on the seat every time she slipped off, as if she were playing with a child who was still alive. The swing creaked slowly back and forth. Each movement let out a mechanical whine, echoing through the silent night. There were no words, no interaction, just the silhouettes of two figures, one living, one dead, tangled in a cold, uncanny atmosphere. At first, the scene seemed almost gentle, but the longer you watched, the more disturbing it became. I stepped forward quickly and grabbed the old woman's hand. It was cold, like metal in the night mist. Just as the swing came to a stop, the girl remained motionless. Her face was pale, twisted, as if she had just experienced something unimaginably traumatic. Her limbs were stiff. She wasn't breathing. It was only then that the old woman seemed to awaken from some sort of trance. She turned to me, confused, then snapped in a trembling voice. "What are you doing? Why won't you let my granddaughter enjoy the swing a little longer?" Then she muttered to herself, "It was just early morning a moment ago. Why is it suddenly so dark?" I looked at my watch. Midnight. There was no way it could be daytime, as she claimed. When she saw the girl's body on the ground, she rushed to it, cradled it tightly, and broke into sobs. "Emily, are you asleep, sweetheart? Wake up, don't scare Grandma like that." The girl, of course, didn't respond. My partner and I quietly speculated that this might actually be the girl's grandmother. The whole case was bizarre. We brought the woman in for questioning. The caller had identified the girl as Emily Carter, 10 years old. Cause of death, pending further results from the coroner. I asked the old woman to recount exactly what had happened. She said her name was Martha Carter and claimed to be Emily's paternal grandmother. Tonight, I took my granddaughter to the park to play on the swing. We'd just been there a little while when you showed up. Why is my Emily dead?" she said, her voice breaking. I observed her closely. Every movement, every expression seemed genuine, not the signs of someone lying. But she insisted they'd only been playing for a little while eyewitnesses in the initial report indicated they'd been there for nearly 6 hours. I asked, "Ma'am, are you aware your granddaughter was on that swing for almost 6 hours?" She blinked, stunned. 6 hours? That can't be. It felt like just 30 minutes. At that moment, a bold theory formed in my mind. Perhaps Martha was suffering from memory loss. She'd lost track of time, and in that fragmented, confused state, she kept pushing her granddaughter on the swing, over and over again, until the little girl sensed something was wrong, tried to make her stop, but Grandma didn't respond. Terrified and helpless, the child may have died of fear right there on that swing. According to the witness who reported the case, at around 6 p.m., Emily had still been laughing and playing happily. When he passed by again around 7, they were still on the swings. Nothing seemed unusual. But it wasn't until midnight, when he returned to the park to buy cigarettes, that he saw it. The same two figures, still swaying. By then, the park was completely still. No more laughter, only the steady, shrill creaking of the chains echoing beneath the dim glow of the streetlight. That image unsettled him so deeply he couldn't take it anymore. He called the police immediately. Not long after, Emily's father, James Carter, arrived at the station. Before I could even ask him anything, he handed me a certificate, official documentation stating that his mother, Martha, had been diagnosed with intermittent memory loss. It confirmed what I'd feared. This was likely a tragic accident. James added that Emily had been born with a congenital heart condition. She couldn't handle emotional shocks. But when I asked why he hadn't checked on his mother and daughter when they didn't return home late into the night, James didn't answer right away. After a pause, he said quietly, "I was out drinking with some friends last night. I should have stayed home." He slapped himself twice, right in front of me. The smell of alcohol still clung to him. The next day, we received the coroner's report. Cause of death, cardiac arrest due to extreme fear. It aligned perfectly with our theory. A tragic and merciless accident. I couldn't help but sigh and mutter under my breath, "What a pity. To be scared to death and still find no peace." But the medical examiner, Dr. Grant, didn't agree. He looked at me, then said slowly, "Are we sure it was just fear?" I asked him what he meant by that. He sighed, eyes drifting into the distance before he finally spoke. "That little girl. Her skin was pale and sallow, her body frail, hair dry and tangled, clear signs of long-term malnutrition. If her family truly loved her, there's no way she should have ended up in that condition. And there's one more thing. According to the autopsy, the estimated time of death was between 5 and 7 p.m. yesterday. You said the man who called the police saw them at around 6? That means between 5 and 6 p.m.? Their whereabouts were completely unaccounted for. He was implying that the girl might have already died during that time, and the swing, it wasn't the actual place she died. She'd been moved there. After she was already dead, I felt a chill run through me. Still, I pushed back. That makes sense, but there's one detail you don't know. A witness reported hearing her laughter around 6 p.m. If that's true, then she was still alive when they got to the swing. The old man fell silent, as if reconsidering everything. So did I, but something about this case just didn't sit right. My instincts told me I had to go back to the scene. I wandered the neighborhood, hoping to find more witnesses. It was an aging residential block, mostly occupied by the elderly. One apartment caught my attention. Its window looked directly onto the swing set. I knocked. An old man answered. I asked, "Sir, did you see anyone playing on the swings between 5 and 7 p.m. on?" He simply shook his head, clearly unaware of anything. Disappointed, I turned to leave, when suddenly his grandson shouted from inside, "Hey, Mr. Policeman, why didn't you ask me? I saw them. I even recorded a video." I spun around. A flicker of hope lit up in me. The boy brought out the clip, just about 30 seconds long. Timestamp, 6:02 p.m. The video showed the little girl and her grandmother on the swings, laughing and playing. Even from a distance, I could hear Emily's laughter clearly, high-pitched, bright, joyful. That proved one thing, at that moment at least, she was still alive. Maybe it really had been just a terrible accident. I brought the video back to the station and played it on the big screen. The swings were moving fast. Emily's face wasn't clearly visible, but her laughter, unmistakable, echoed through the room. I sent the footage to the tech team for image enhancement. When the results came back, a cold shiver crawled down my spine. Emily's face emerged. But it wasn't the face of a living child. It was pale, ghostly pale. Her eyes were wide open, her mouth stretched unnaturally, as if it had been pulled into a silent scream. The girl in that video looked like a corpse. But what was even more horrifying, the image didn't freeze there. Emily's face began to smile, a grotesque, twisted grin. Her laughter continued in the clip, but it didn't match her mouth's movement. It was off, as if the laughter was coming from somewhere else entirely. Why would a dead child laugh? Something wasn't right. I tried to reason with myself. Kids often laugh when they're pushed high on a swing. But in the clip, her laughter rang out no matter what, even when no one was pushing her. There was only one possibility. The sound had been pre-recorded. Emily's grandmother was lying. She may have been playing a recording while sitting beside her already dead granddaughter to fool anyone passing by. If someone heard a child laughing, they'd assume Emily was still alive. And if questioned by police, the witness would unknowingly confirm that assumption, leading the investigation astray. It was an incredibly sophisticated trick, especially for someone supposedly suffering from memory loss. This old woman might have looked frail, forgetful, but deep down, she had a mind more aware than anyone realized. She didn't act like someone with dementia at all. The only question was, why would she do such a thing? I began to feel suspicious, and in my mind, only one name surfaced: James Carter. Her son. Emily's father. I went back to the interrogation room and sat across from Martha. "Mrs. Martha," I said gently, "your granddaughter didn't die in an accident, did she? Why did you lie?" Her expression changed the moment she saw me. She looked deeply uneasy, her face turned pale, and her whole body trembled. I noticed tears welling up in the corners of her eyes. I continued, "Even if someone else was responsible, you'll still be held accountable if you're hiding the truth. You need to tell us what really happened, or you'll be backing yourself into a corner." She sobbed silently. Then, all of a sudden, her voice changed. Gone was the trembling grief, replaced by a chilling calm. "It's all my fault," she said. "It was my carelessness. I don't blame anyone else." She never admitted who was truly responsible for the death, but her reaction spoke volumes. At that very moment, my colleague received new information. At around 5:20 p.m. on the day of the incident, a $5,000 0-cent deposit was made into James Carter's bank account. The money came from an anonymous account withdrawn from an ATM near the crime scene. That transaction was far too suspicious. I'd grown used to conducting interrogations in the dark, in silence. But that day, as we drove toward the worn-down house where a man named James Carter lived with his elderly mother, a heaviness settled in my chest, so tight it was hard to breathe. The house stood at the end of a suburban street, where the streetlights barely lit the withered bushes and peeling paint. When I knocked, he answered the door with a startled expression, though the tension on his face was impossible to hide. The first thing he asked was, "You're here again? When are you letting my mother go? She didn't do anything wrong." I looked him in the eyes, cold and direct. "That depends on what you tell us today. Where were you between 5 and 6 yesterday evening?" James licked his lips, lowered his head, and answered in a voice caught between defiance and evasion. "I was home, with my wife. You think I killed my own kid?" Then, as if realizing what he had just said, he stepped back, trembling. "I'm not a monster. I didn't do it. But something didn't feel right, and I had proof." "What about the $5,000 0-cents you received that day?" The moment I mentioned the amount, James's face went pale. Sweat beaded at his temples and trickled down his collar. He swallowed hard, his voice barely audible, like a child caught in a lie. "It was child support. My wife and I, we're separated. She didn't want to raise the kid anymore." I asked, "Why not?" James didn't respond right away. His face tensed. His eyes darted to the side as if hiding something far more revolting than guilt. She was seeing someone else. She said the child wasn't even hers. His words sounded plausible, but it was only his version. And still, a cold unease stirred inside me. I decided to take a look around the house. Everything was in disarray, aged and worn, like time itself had abandoned the place. 2 bedrooms, one for James, one for his mother. But something felt off. There was no room for the child. Emily, the 10-year-old girl supposedly living with her grandmother, had left no trace of her existence. No clothes, no shoes, no stuffed animals, no drawings, nothing. I asked, "Where did she sleep?" James rubbed his hands together, eyes cast downward. Then he pointed to a small corner in the living room, a cheap fold-up bed pressed against the wall next to a small wooden table. On it lay a few second-grade textbooks and a pink fabric backpack hanging from a hook. Everything was heartbreakingly tidy. Emily had no room of her own, no place to truly belong, not even in her father's house. I stood silently in front of the bed, my chest hollow, but what made me stop was the bottom drawer of the little table. Inside, there was a diary. It was thin, the pages worn at the edges, the handwriting uneven, the scrawl of a child. I opened it, and I read, because something inside might hold the key. September 6th, my desk mate. Tyler is so annoying. He brought a huge mango to class, almost as big as my face. He took one bite and said it was gross, then wanted to throw it away. I've never had mango before. I asked him for the rest. It tasted strange. Strangely good. Like the flavor of dreams I've never really had. Mom said she's coming to visit me tomorrow. I'll ask her to buy me a mango. I couldn't read any further. I closed the notebook. My hands were trembling, not from fear, but from a quiet rage swelling in my chest. This little girl, no room of her own, nothing to call hers, and her last joyful memory was a discarded piece of mango. We took the journal as evidence. It had no legal value, but to me, it was the key. If she died in this very house, then why hadn't her father shown a shred of remorse? And what exactly made him break into a cold sweat the moment I brought up the $5,000, 0 cents transaction? I remembered him saying her mother had been there too, but days had passed since the girl's death and no one had seen the woman. Something was deeply wrong. I left the house and went straight to the girl's mother. The next apartment complex was like another world. Quiet, modern, expensive. The woman who opened the door was neat, composed, her lips red as blood. "I'm June Walker," she introduced herself, Emily's mother. Before I could say anything, a boy, maybe 12 or 13, appeared behind her. "Auntie, I finished my homework. Can we go to the park now?" "Auntie?" June smiled at him and brushed his hair gently. "Go ahead, Tyler. I'll be right there." Tyler. The name struck me like a blade through the mind. I remembered the diary entry. My desk mate. Tyler is so annoying. The boy who ate the mango. A strange rising sense of dread crawled through my chest. Something was wrong here, very wrong. I looked at her, coldly, and asked, "Your daughter is dead. Why didn't you come to see her one last time?" June sighed, as if I'd asked the most foolish question in the world. "The dead are dead. What difference does it make if I look?" I asked again. "Between 5 and 6 p.m. on the day of the incident, where were you?" She didn't flinch. "I was at my ex-husband's house. I went to talk about the divorce. I told him I wanted to leave. He didn't agree. I said, if I wired him $5,000, 0 cents, he could keep the kid, and I'd go. And you wired the money." "Yeah." That same day, one payment, done and gone. I didn't ask why she didn't keep the child. I already knew. Children become burdens when adults start chasing new lives. When love dies, adults walk away free. But children, they're left behind, with no say in any of it. She looked at me one last time. "He's a bastard," took the money and then asked for more. Said $5,000 wasn't enough. He wanted 10. I refused, and I left. I left the apartment sometime after 6 p.m. Outside, the sky had already darkened. I looked up to where the last trace of sunset had finally vanished. Nightfall had descended upon the city. Nothing was certain, but my instincts told me she knew more than she was saying. On the way back, my colleague called. He said that while I was questioning June about the time of Emily's death, James, the girl's father, had transferred exactly $150.00 back into her account. I pulled over to the side of the road. I began to replay the entire timeline. Piece by piece, the puzzle was shifting, slowly clicking back into place. I thought about the boy, Tyler, Emily's classmate. He was the same name mentioned in the diary I found in her room. I flipped back to the final entry that had caught my attention. Emily had written, "Mom used to take me to the park to play on the swings. She filmed a lot of videos of me. It hit me like a jolt of electricity. My heart sank. I had missed something. Because last night, Emily's grandmother had told me she always made the girls sleep on the sofa, refused to let her stay in the same room, claiming she didn't want to be disturbed. So if she always avoided Emily, who filmed those swing videos on the phone?" There was only one answer: her mother. I checked the phone Martha was using, an outdated model from nearly 10 years ago. Its screen was scratched and the camera lens clouded. There was no way it could have captured the clear videos I saw on Emily's device. Those videos weren't filmed by the grandmother. That means Emily's mother had been involved all along. Not only did she know the truth, she might have been the one responsible for the girl's death. And there's only one possibility: she transferred those videos to Martha's phone, deliberately planting fake evidence. There were too many gaps, and just one person trying to cover them all. One question remained in my mind: why? Why let a child die like that? To her mother, maybe Emily was just a burden, but to Emily, her mother was everything. I will never forget the look in that little girl's eyes in the photo. A gaze still full of hope, a hope that was never returned. The next day I returned to see her, emotions tangled inside me. This time, when I knocked, she opened the door herself. Her eyes were blank, heavy with fatigue and guarded suspicion. "I've already told the police everything," she muttered. I looked her straight in the eyes, my voice low and steady. "You're lying. Emily, she was never a burden, not ever. But to her, you were everything." And that was why I couldn't forgive her. I took the diary from my coat pocket and handed it to her. She hesitated, then opened it to the very first page. April 5th. Today was a happy day. My deskmate Tyler gave me a pretty notebook. He accidentally dropped it on the ground and it got a little dirty, so he didn't want it anymore. He gave it to me instead. It's so beautiful. From now on, it'll be my diary. April 13th, Tyler's aunt bought him new clothes again. He told me she spent $500, 0 cents. My clothes cost $5, 0 cents. And that's enough to buy 2 outfits. Besides, I only have 2 sets of clothes for the whole summer. If the weather's bad and they don't dry in time, I have to wear the same one for another day. But I'm not jealous of him, because my clothes were bought by my mom. I'm sure she worked really hard to earn that money. Day 9. After school today, I saw Tyler's dad picking him up again. There was a woman in the car who looked just like my mom. But my mom's working far away, so how could that be her? I miss my mom. Today is Children's Day. We had half a day off. I went home, but Dad and Grandma weren't there. They went to a wedding and forgot about me. They didn't come back until the next day. I slept in the hallway all night. The next morning, I woke up tired and hungry, but I didn't dare tell Dad I was feeling sick. June 20th, Tyler gave me lots of snacks today. He said they were all imported. His aunt bought them for him. He couldn't finish them, and they were about to expire, so the taste was a little weird, but still delicious. September 7. Today is the happiest day of my life. Mom came to visit me. In the morning, she took me to the park to play on the swings. She filmed a lot of videos of me. Before, I couldn't swing by myself, but today, with Mom, we went so high. Mom took me shopping for clothes. I told her I only had 2 sets, but that was enough. I said that on purpose. I knew Mom would definitely buy more for me. Yesterday, I promised my classmates I'd bring mangoes to school. But I didn't dare ask Mom to buy any. I was afraid it would make her upset, so I just said it quietly. A moment later, she suddenly asked me, "Is there anything else you'd like to eat?" When I heard that, I felt so happy I wanted to jump up. I quickly said, "I want mangoes. I'm such a clever girl." Mom took me to buy mangoes, but I didn't want her to spend too much money. So we bought a few older ones that were on discount. When we got home, I packed them in my school bag. When I go to class, I'll share them, one for each friend. And I'll save 2. One for Dad, one for Grandma. When I grow up, I will make lots of money so Mom won't have to work anymore. She can stay by my side every single day. After reading June's entry, everything seemed to collapse. Emily's whole life. Her father didn't love her, and her grandmother didn't either. She was such an easy child to please, needing only a little sweetness to fill her heart. You were the one who gave her that sweetness. You were the closest person to her in this world, yet you couldn't even give her justice. Why did you choose to bring her into this world? June's spirit shattered, tears racking her chest as if it might break. My dear daughter, I'm sorry. I truly deserve to die. Finally, she was willing to speak the truth about her daughter's death. The last time I went to see James, I wanted a divorce, but he and his mother refused. I thought this would break their spirits, until I said I didn't want a single cent and that I would pay them $5,000, 0 cents in alimony. Only then did he soften. But after he got the money, he changed his mind and demanded $10,000, 0 cents. Didn't I already humiliate him when I left? Is he really that greedy? James didn't get angry. He lunged at me and hit me. But soon I suddenly heard my daughter scream. I was terrified for her, but he was already furious. When we looked toward her, she wasn't breathing anymore. He had scared her to death. I was trembling with fear and reached for my phone to call the police. James saw the body and knew he was in serious trouble. He snatched my phone away and begged me not to call the police. He promised that if I didn't report him, he would never bother me again. He immediately agreed to divorce me. I was so confused, I didn't know what to do. Seeing my hesitation, he said, "Isn't it better that the child is dead? All our misfortunes started because of her. Now that she's gone, it's better for all of us." At that moment, I was truly haunted and didn't call the police. I admit I was selfish. All I saw was that my daughter was gone. And somehow, all conflicts seemed to vanish instantly. Everything was settled. I had leverage over him, and he wouldn't dare disturb me. I could start a completely new life. But now, with the body here and the police investigating, it will be discovered. I gave him an idea. His mother has intermittent memory loss, so making her take the blame was the best option. She didn't hesitate to agree. I put a video of my daughter playing on the swing in the morning on her phone, telling her to say she took my daughter to the neighborhood swings. Play the video over and over until someone sees it. Don't stop it until the police arrive. When the police ask, pretend to have no memory, forget everything, and you'll be released soon enough. I just want this to end. Everything will be reborn. Let's pretend he never came and nothing happened. That's the whole truth. As she finished, she kept slapping herself. Shortly after June's confession, James also admitted his crime. Emily's grandmother seemed truly insane. In jail, she kept repeating, "If only it had been a boy." After the case ended, everyone involved couldn't calm down for a long time. Emily's life was like walking on thin ice, born seemingly carrying a burden of guilt. Nobody liked her. For a moment, it seemed like everyone was freed by her passing. She was always cheerful and optimistic, but in the end, she couldn't wait for her own happiness.